First episode of the Unique Pivot podcast, where my hope is that you come here to just have real talk about what us women go through, and that no matter what you're going through, you're not alone. I know it could feel that way because I've been there before, and that no matter what thoughts go through your head, sometimes you can feel like something's wrong with you because from the outside you look at like you have it all together, but inside you just feel like something is wrong, something is empty, something is missing. And I want to bring my story to you and bring weekly episodes to you to just let you know that you're not alone, no matter what you're going through. Being that this is my first episode, this is such a surreal moment for me because, I promised God that if he just got me through my darkest times, that I would share my story, I would spread hope, I would help other women. And he did that for me, so I'm keeping my promise, and it's something that just fills my heart to share. The reason why I want to share my story is because I know that I am not the only woman who could be feeling the way I was. And I do say was because my life has changed drastically when I really discovered where happiness came from. A little bit about me. My name is Dominique. I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I started this journey of self-discovery. I would say I really got into it in 2020. Prior to the big pandemic, as we all know, 2020 will always be a year that we don't forget about. But prior to that, my younger years, I was raised by my grandparents, my twin sister and I. I lost my twin sister a little over a year ago, but I'll share more about that as episodes progress. Her and I were raised by my grandparents, had a beautiful upbringing. We were so loved. And then one day we started asking questions like, we love all, and we started naming all our brothers and sisters. And we said we loved all of them, but there was one that we loved more and we didn't know why. So I think we were about 7 years old, and we discovered that she was not our sister, but she was in fact our mother, our mom. So as you can imagine, that was very shocking for both of us. Then we became curious about our father, and I'm sure I'll get into this more in depth, but I just kind of want to give a history of my childhood. So found out that she was in fact our mother, and we continued to kind of live with my grandparents, and then we tried living with our mom, and it was a lot for us. We just didn't really know how to process it, and I know we just never wanted to hurt anybody's feelings because we didn't want either of them to think we loved each other or loved them more than the other. So kind of that was a shock. We never really got counseling or anything for it, and kind of just went on after that got found out. Had a pretty healthy life through middle school, through high school, just the normal, I would say. And who knows what normal is, but nothing very big, like tragic happened to me. I mean, that's probably tragic enough in itself, finding out your sister is in fact your mom. But being raised by my grandparents, he just always taught me to go to school, to get a good job, to work for the government. And so I did that. I went to college, and my first year in college, I became pregnant with my now 25-year-old daughter. And then shortly after that, her father and I separated, and then I met my now husband, who I've been married to. It'll be actually 20 years next month. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. So, did the stuff I was told to do. I went to school, I got the degree, I got a job with the government, got the pension, and I still just felt like something was missing. Like, I was like, there has to be more to life than this. I feel like there has to be more, and I just couldn't figure it out. So I started kind of just living for the weekends, and I just thought that's how life is. That's just, we live for the weekends, and you hear a lot of people saying that. And then one night in 2009, I woke up with severe stomach pain and had my husband call the ambulance. They took me to the hospital, couldn't figure out what was wrong. Then a few weeks later, same thing, the significant abdominal pain came back again, called the ambulance. They couldn't figure out what was wrong, so they started prescribing me opiate painkillers. And at the time, I didn't really have any knowledge of what opiates really were. So within a couple weeks, I started referring to those pills as my happy pills, because finally that pill was what I had been looking for. It gave me, my anxiety went away, that emptiness that I spoke about went away. I finally felt like normal, whatever normal means. So that pill eventually ended up taking total control of my life. And I'm talking, it got to the point that I was actually stealing from my grandfather, my grandpa who raised me, because he had got cancer around that same time. So he had endless amounts of pain pills. And it got to the point that that pill was all I cared about. It came before my kids, it came before my job, it came before my husband, it came before myself. And it got so bad into the addiction that one morning I woke up and I didn't have pills. So my husband thought I was going to work, and I actually went to my grandparents to try and get pills. And at the time I had been abusing oxycodone and didn't realize how strong fentanyl was. And before I know it, I'm waking up on the floor with paramedics all around me, and they had just revived me from an overdose. I really thank God that I didn't go home that day, that I did stay at my grandparents after I took the fentanyl. And for those of you that don't know the difference, fentanyl is actually like 10 times stronger than, they say, heroin. I didn't know that at the time. So I really believe that God kept me here to share my story and to do what I do now, which is coach women and guide them to discover that their power is within. So the day after I overdosed, I still continued to use. I still didn't seek treatment for about 6 months. And it's because I was ashamed. I was ashamed of what others were going to think of me. The shame was so bad, it nearly almost cost me my life. And I really think that goes back to how we're programmed. We're taught that happiness and fulfillment comes from outside of us. I didn't want anybody to know, because I really felt that my worth was determined on what people thought of me. And I'm so sure so many of you women can relate to this. I mean, I literally almost lost my life because I was afraid of what people were going to think of me. And it got to the point to where I just became exhausted. And I promised God, just, if you please get me through this, I promise I'll share my story and I'll help others. So here I am today doing that very thing. And so I literally Googled the first place that popped up in Google, and I found myself that next day in a methadone clinic. I had no idea what I was walking into. And it took me several years to wean off the methadone and Suboxone. And the withdrawals from opiate addiction are so horrendous that I really believe that the Suboxone and the methadone saved my life. Because I also know there's a stigma with methadone and Suboxone. But I can honestly say that that medication actually saved my life. Because like I said, the withdrawals they're horrendous. It's like having the worst stomach flu, normal flu, body aches, anxiety, depression, insomnia. It's literally miserable. It's living hell. And that's why I actually kept taking the pills, is because I was basically just trying to avoid the withdrawals. That was one of the reasons. And then, of course, I was just so ashamed for anybody to find out. So I went through recovery, and I kept telling myself, okay, once I'm through recovery, my shame's going to go away. I'm going to be happy. Like I thought it was going to be once again the magic key to my happiness, that emptiness that I felt my entire life. But even after I was in recovery and no longer abusing the pills, I just still felt like addiction was running my life. I still felt empty. I still felt like, what's wrong with me? I'd look around and be like, I should be happy. At the time I lived in this beautiful custom home. I had a good job, a good husband, healthy kids. Why do I feel the way I do? Like I felt like something was wrong with me. So then when the pandemic hit, I found myself passing time by with podcasts, and that's when I discovered self-development, and it saved my life, because then eventually it led me down the journey of discovering the power of the subconscious mind. And now I'm a master practitioner in neuro-linguistics programming, which is actually, they say it's the language of the mind. That the NLP is basically, they say, is the manual for the mind. And when you truly discover how powerful your mind is and how your subconscious mind works, and then after I learned about the mind and I'm like, okay, my mind feels okay. I really believe that I'm worthy and that my past doesn't define me. I'm like, but why does my body still feel heavy? Why do I still have that heaviness in my stomach? Why do I still feel like my throat gets tight when I want to use my voice? Why do I still have that pressure in my chest? Like, what is wrong with me? My mind felt better, but my body just didn't match. Then that led me down the journey of discovering that emotions are energy in motion. And most of us were raised to suck it up, be strong. Don't let them know you're weak. Go to your room until you're finished crying. Don't let them see you cry. You look ugly when you cry. I'm sure so many of you can also relate to that. So that teaches us to actually suppress our emotions. And when those emotions get stuck in our body, it actually keeps trauma lodged in our body. So the reason I'm starting this podcast is because I want to use these episodes as an opportunity to share with you my journey of how I went from nearly losing my life and quite honestly not even wanting to live to now share that story with pride. It no longer shames me, and to wake up every day and have gratitude and feel excitement and have energy and just be happy to live. And all of us women deserve to know this. All of us deserve to know the power that we have within. And we are all the creators of our lives. I know that sounds so cliche, but as these episodes pass on and you really commit to this work and discovering where your power comes from, I promise you that you have everything you need inside of you. And that if you can relate to anything that I'm saying, any part of my story, struggling with anxiety, struggling with depression, struggling with addiction. And that doesn't necessarily just mean alcohol and drugs. Addiction is actually a solution. We turn to things outside of ourselves to avoid being in the present moment. We can turn to social media. We can turn to shopping. We can turn to gambling. We can turn to food. We can turn to self-sabotage. Addiction is turning to anything outside to numb yourself and to actually take yourself out of the present moment. And once I discovered that, that's when I totally was able to release all the shame I had from my actions that I did while I was in active addiction. Because I did a lot of things that I was very, very ashamed of. But now I have so much compassion for that version of myself because I know that I was literally just trying to survive, because the brain is wired for survival and avoiding pain and seeking pleasure. So when you really uncover the power of the subconscious mind and understand the energetics of our emotions, that's when you literally transform your life. So I'm so excited to have this platform where I can share with you weekly. That's my goal. So please subscribe to this podcast so you can be notified on the new episodes coming up. And as I say, and as I will always say, it's one step, one day, one pivot at a time.